discovered about themselves by answering those questions, or what sort of was like, and first of all, we're going to ask Cheryl to share a little story about why she started sailing.
Okay, well, kids are still at home, but late teens and very active in music and sport. My husband's very active in pipe band and was away a lot, so during the weekends, you know, I thought, right, Saturday morning, housework done, roast ready for Saturday night when they'll come home and whatever, and then they come home, hardly notice anything, of course, eat everything, and then Sunday morning, you know, clean up whatever's left to clean up. And I was in the garden this Sunday, no one else at home, and families playing on both sides of me, you know, in the birds, and I thought, I was digging the garden and felt life was pretty unfair at that point, and I thought, I need to find something interesting to do or have an affair.
Thank God you took up sailing.
But would you believe it? That afternoon, a friend came round with his 9-month-old son to show me his son, and he said, I just told him one half of that story. I just said I need to find something interesting to do, and he's a sailing instructor, and he said, why don't you take up sailing? And I said, aren't I too old? You know, 42, because you see all the young people on TV. He said no, and I said, I've never been on a boat before, and he said, there's an introductory course. So we were just at the start of having some discretionary spending, mentioned it to Ian, and part of the thing is to go through the whole course. Tell the kids, you start something, you know, you finish it. So it's a 6-month course. Yes, he was right behind me, hardly any discussion, go for it, and that's how I started sailing.
Wow, so you sailed first. I just presumed Ian was the sailor and you were just his first mate.
No.
First mate or the captain. Yeah.
Well, I can be. It's very funny because you're in a room, you know, socially, and they say, oh, you've got a boat, and they ask Ian all these things, and initially he didn't even know the answers, but now he does. But and I just let it go. I was slightly miffed and upset about how things went as I was kind of sidelined, but then I realised, actually, if I'm upset about that, I'm sidelining myself. So, and I was agreeing with those people, so it's actually got nothing to do with how I feel, so I don't feel sidelined anymore, and just let it.
You can smile on the inside.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like with the boating with us. I got my driver's license, boat license, and jet ski first because I wanted to do it first, and Nick wasn't interested in it, so I just went and did that myself. So what came up for other people with the exercise that you just did now? Want to share, anyone?
Well, as I was saying to you earlier, it was about going through and also hearing your story earlier. It just reminded me, or just showed me, that I really have never had any guidance with money at all through my
from your parents?
Not really, no. I mean, obviously my dad was a farmer, and so he was self-employed, but it kind of still didn't feel like I didn't see him as a role model. I saw it later how great he was at what he did and what he passed on to my son, who obviously took on that same role together on our farm. But I just didn't really see, unlike you, I didn't see really anybody around who was doing, making their own business, it wasn't about money for me. I was very successful academically and knew I wanted to go on and have a career and be successful, but none of that was about money. Yeah. So it's interesting.
So how did your parents give you money? Did you have a part-time job? I suppose you just worked on the farm, they just gave you money?
Yeah, I think to be honest, I think they just gave us some money every now and then, and if we were doing something, they'd give us a bit of money to do it. First job was babysitting some other local families when I was about 15 or 16 probably. I think I used to get dropped off by mum, and then eventually when I got my licence I'd do more. But then also my first probably proper job was checkout chick at Woolies. But yeah, so it's interesting to explore that whole take with money, because I really don't think I've had one, and even then it's like I said, there was a few financial issues with the family and farms and droughts as I was growing up, and I think that then turned some negative, that money can go and it's not just there, because I think I just always assumed it was there.
So when you go back to that, when you had money in your life,
Yeah.
and then money went away,
Yeah.
and then in your life has that repeated itself?
Yes, of course it has. Yeah.
So where in your life have you seen money in the past, and has it repeated itself anywhere in your life right now? So money in your upbringing, in your family. So it may not have, but for a lot of people it does repeat itself, the money cycles or the money beliefs. And if it hasn't now, it quite often will, no matter what age you are. Yeah.
My father had quite a different belief in money. He thought it was for spending, and he said, well look, don't worry if you owe money, because the creditors should be more worried than you are, because they're the ones losing the money, you know, if you can't pay back. And then towards the end, he wasn't worried about not having any money. He said someone will always pay for you.
Wow, interesting.
And someone did. Hello. Yeah. That was a wee bit to get over as well. You know, someone will always pay for you, and then you think about it, who is that someone?
And you can see that as empowering or unempowering. That you're always relying on someone else, an outside source.
Yeah.
You know, if it's an actual person, in that sense, yeah. It's just interesting. Our own take on it would be completely different. So if that happened to each one of you, we'd all have a different take on it, a different belief, a different value about it, and it would affect us in all different ways. So what happens in one family, if you put 5 siblings there, they'll all have a different take on it.
Yeah.
Because it's whatever belief that happens on around that time, what else is going on in their life, affects exactly what you think now. But we don't all know because it's in our subconscious, it's just a memory there. Yeah. Is there anything else? Anyone wants to?
Yeah, just quickly back to that, because obviously with our family, I've got 2 other sisters, and we are all so different, and we were all raised by the same parents that taught us the same values. But I've got one that's really, really tight, the other one that just spends on everything, and I'm sort of in the middle. But we were all taught by my parents the same thing. We were like your parents, we had to save things, we had jobs at the ice cream parlour at Riccarton Mall. But my dad was a tradie, so he always had a lot of cash, because he'd do a lot of cash jobs as well as doing other jobs. So if we needed something, even though we had our own money, he'd still give us money because it was cash lying around the house and things like that. But with 3 of us, all raised with the same values, we've all turned out so different.
Yeah, that's right. And it's quite tricky when you get brought up in life where you had your own money, but then you got given it quite easily, and then when you leave home and that doesn't happen anymore, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I have to fend for myself now. And sometimes that money can become so precious because you start seeing it go down and down, and all of a sudden we get really, really tight with it. So it's sort of like a voice around it where we just actually hold it tight because we're just too scared that it's not going to flow, because we're not going to get that next flow coming in, because they happen to be a parent, which means the money cannot flow so easy because we have that thought of, whereas my dad was the same.
But my first sister, then, she was the one that got most of the money, and then she actually met someone who was very loaded and still kept giving her the money. So it's like that, how that thing, but it ended really badly. But it's funny how
you look at your upbringing as a reflection.
So it's what she went looking out for.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
That's right. No, it's really, really interesting how we and how it can reflect on our life today. It's not always for everyone, but it can at some stage, or a variation of it.
Yeah. I didn't grow up with a lot of money, as in, like, if I wanted anything, I had to go and find a way.
Yeah.
So I've always been entrepreneurial, and there was a belief system. What you were saying is like my dad used to always say, "It's okay, just spend everyone else's money."
Must have been
I didn't know what it meant.
It was obviously
But
a belief of that day, wasn't it?
And I was like, oh, but how do I get their money, you know? But yeah, so he used to have that, but my grandparents were business people, but they were known to be ruthless in business. So I didn't have a healthy
belief systems there.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of healthy.
So someone always going to give you money. Is that replayed in its life right now?
Pardon?
Spending other people's money, is that replayed in its life right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the ruthless in business can stop us moving forward really successful in business. It's like, we know we can do it, but and it's in the back. It's like,
Yeah.
where does that belief sit, and why does it stop us, and how can we unlock that door for that disappear? Because I know I'll be successful in business.
Yeah, like they were successful in business. Well, I always saw them as very generous with their money, but it was what other people would say about them.
And does it empower us to spend other people's money, or does it empower us more to spend our own money?
Our own money.
Yeah.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Does it empower us more to spend other people's money, or does it empower us more to spend our own money?
No,
All right.
you need to get your own.
Yeah, I've never, because I grew up with a single mom. That was a value she instilled in me very strongly. She couldn't rely on anyone because Dad didn't pay child maintenance back in the day when the government didn't try to get that portion. So I can't recall ever relying on anyone for money, and it's actually probably something that sometimes will come up in my relationship at the moment where
So it's replaying itself in a different way.
Yeah, in a different way.
Because you'll be responsible for all your money, and again it's tightened a voice when it's yours, because I relied on no one in my upbringing, you're replaying it. And there's nothing wrong with it in some ways, but it actually does hold the flow of money. Even if we've got plenty of money, it holds the flow, and it's holding a belief where we're tight, which means it sits tight within us, which actually can affect us in our relationship, but also in our health. We don't even know. It causes like a blockage in our arteries, in our flow of our blood, in our energy flow, and we don't know why. And it's not always there, but it's like it does saying, why does this keep coming up? Yeah, it does replay. It's quite interesting.
What if money always comes to you?
Yeah, so that's a belief system, and that's great that money always flows into you.
Yeah.
And it flows out for you, and it works really good for you, but are you happy with it? Like, money doesn't bring happiness. What is it that you want to do with that money? Are you actually